Hi guys, happy Friday. So, I think this depression is kind of going away to an extent. I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on. So, alright. Where do we leave off? Oh, we left off with the cycle of Sed and Selic. Hopefully I said that right. It's starting to make sense now that I'm more into the book. So, alright, now we have walking the crooked path, and this is sacred space, so creating sacred space. He goes into a lot more of creating sacred space, why we create it in a traditional witchcraft type of way, the construct of it and what it means. Really interesting stuff, so I really like the way he talks. It's almost like you can hear him talking while you're reading. So, we have sacred space upon the crooked path, which I think is pretty incredible. So, sacred space means different things to different people, so really the only way that he can describe, or can get around, that is to tell you what it means to him. So, sacred space is an enclosure that we create, if you like, an artificial bubble in mundane reality. So, it sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Yeah. So, inside in which we create an environment that is conducive to whatever type of ritual work or crafting work we plan on doing. So that does make a lot more sense. It sounds very ceremonial. Alright, now, there are a lot of different methods in different traditions on creating sacred space, so a lot of different names too. For the average neo-pagan Wiccan, circle casting is the term that springs to mind. But circle casting is not exactly what traditional witch or cunning folk or traditional crafter would call the setting up of their sacred space. So the reason for this is down to good old-fashioned history, and the fact that crafters are not likely to use the terms that have been borrowed from other places. So you see, circle casting is technically a ceremonial magic technique, and as Wicca borrowed quite a lot of its ritual structure from ceremonial magic. So from the Golden Dawn, courtesy of Gerald Gardner, and even more so Alexander's, so who got even more ceremonial than Gerald did. So yeah. So the circle casting that you have in most Wiccan covens is very ceremonial oriented. So it uses the classical elements of the watchtowers, or the watchtowers, as they're often called. Even the phrase that is used when drawing the circle in Gardnerian and Alexandrian circles, at least, is taken straight out of the Key of Solomon. Straight out of the Key of Solomon. So it's very much about creating a barrier, a boundary within you can work. So, and perhaps the most significant difference from the point of view of a crafter between the ceremonial or Wiccan circle and the sacred space created by a non-Wiccan method is that in a Wiccan circle, in a ceremonial circle, the aim is to set up an environment. So you call down the moon, drawing down the sun, invoking, bringing things in. This is very much the modus operandi of the ceremonial magician. He stays put and everything comes to him or her. So, now, that's not what it is in traditional craft at all. Now, in traditional crafting, it actually works the other way around. The space is warded or set aside, if you like. And then the crafter takes the space and themselves to wherever it is the entities or energies that they want to work with happen to be. So there is a definite difference in feel, if nothing else. Though there's also a difference in names. So, most traditional crafters try to avoid saying circle casting, unless they really have to, just because they want to emphasize the fact that it is different from what a Wiccan does. I can totally see, I see this differentiating point of view now. I understand, and this guy is making me understand why I don't like circle casting. So, alright, names that you may find being used for creating sacred space: warding the space, laying a compass, plowing the bloody acre, raising the hedgerow. Lots of different terms like that, which tend to be very physical sounding, descriptive terms. So, and each of them has a particular technique associated with it. Some are used predominantly by a practitioner, by a particular tradition, and some are really more generic. So, warding the space is probably the most generic, so it covers all the techniques for doing this, and it just involves essentially, and there are traditional crafters going to, he says they're going to hate me for saying this, circle casting by another name. I don't like that, but I don't care. So it is making the space in which you're standing something special set aside from the mundane world. Laying a compass is a little bit more technical than just awarding space, because what you're doing, what did I write here? Because what you're aiming to do is to set off the lie of the land. So this is very different. Which very old-fashioned. It's a very old-fashioned sort of saying. The lay of the land. The lie of the land. I was raised with that term. So, but it involves basically setting out things that are specific to your tradition and establishing their relationship to each other within the space and placing yourself in the center or the circulum point, I guess, maybe. I can't read that. So that you are able to bring about the changes that you want. So, and it takes a little bit of practice. So laying the compass is not something that you can learn from a book. It is something that you really have to get the light bulb moment about, or have to have somebody who is skilled at it work you through it. So, like most traditional craft techniques, it's all very experimental. So you have to actually learn it on hands-on. So he says here, I am going to try to explain it in details here, except basically what you're trying to do is you're going to be you're trying to superimpose your tradition's map on the universe upon the land upon which you're working. It really sounds difficult, but it's not. So plowing the bloody acre is more of an outdoor term. It also involves the traditional image of dragging your left leg or right leg, visually left or usually left, as you work your way around the perimeter of the circle space to establish a boundary marker, if you like. And the bloody acre is the area that is covered by the river of blood. So it's a nice technical term, as used in fairy faith as well as several other old craft traditions. That how it's basically the current of magic or crafting that the practitioner is part of. So you're talking about immersing yourself in the current in the tradition itself. Very different. So plowing is working the land and quite literally making the two and one and the same. So because all traditions, all currents come out of the land in one form or another, because they're all tied into the ancestors, which we'll talk about later. So do we do this indoors or outdoors? So he was taught, he says, if you can't work your magic stark naked in a concrete bunker, then you can't work magic, period. Probably could. I know I could. So ultimately it doesn't matter, but obviously sometimes you're going to be working indoors and sometimes you're going to be working outdoors. So does the technique change? Yeah, it does. Mainly because traditional crafters tend to set all of the land outdoors as sacred to a greater or lesser extent. So you don't really need to make the land sacred as it already is, which is amazing. We already knew that though. So when working outdoors, you just basically set up your boundary markers and you do your work. And usually at the end of it, rather than taking it down, you just walk away from it, literally. So because you are going to you're not going to be desanctifying the land in any more than you are going to make it more sacred than it started out to be. So yeah, indoors is a bit different. If you work in a temple, then you're going to build up a similar sort of effect over the years in your temple space as well. So yeah, the more that you worked in your temple like I have, then yeah, it's basically set up already. So but if you have to use the living room or a corner of your bedroom, then you're basically going to put it up and take it down each time as completely as you can, so that you don't have any issues with using that space for mundane purposes at other times. So it's pretty interesting. I love that whole scenario. I love how he explains sacred space, and how the circle is, it's not very accepted by traditional witches, and I agree 100%. So yeah, it was just pretty interesting, very interesting stuff. So it's finally making some sense to me, so I can kind of, I can say, okay, well, I am, totally understanding that. So that's what I can do. And It's pretty amazing, so I'm pretty happy about that. And once I got kind of further along, it would make more sense, and it would just start making a lot more sense. And yeah, I was right. So this is really, it's for us, the traditional cunning folk, to actually, depending on, you know, since traditional witchcraft is very regional. So yeah, taking your tradition from whatever region, which mine would be the West Country, Cornwall, taking that and using that in this space in the United States. So it's just, wow, it's just lots of terms, lots of technical terms, and it's crazy, but it's amazing at the same time. So alright guys, I hope you all have a great Friday, great weekend. Hopefully it goes by well, I hope. But anyways, I love you guys. And Sabrina, it might be saved by HBO Max. They might pick it up. So the petitions are working. Keep signing those petitions. So I love you all very much, all the way from Venus, all the way back down. I'm very tired. Did not sleep well. Yeah. But anyways, I love you guys, and thank you for watching.